hands trembled, until the mountain man asked, "May I hold you?" and waited for her answer. Elias had lived in the mountains for so many years that he no longer counted them. Time worked differently up there. Days were measured by light and weather, not calendars. Seasons passed quietly, and Elias passed with them, growing older without noticing. He had chosen this life after the world below had taken too much from him. In the mountains, no one asked questions, and no one expected anything. His cabin stood alone near a river, built with his own hands. It was small but strong, made of thick logs and patience. Every morning Elias woke before the sun. He chopped wood, checked his traps, and cooked simple meals. He spoke to no one, yet he did not feel lonely in the way people often described. Silence had become familiar, almost comforting. That winter was harsher than most. Snow came early and stayed late. The wind cut through trees like a blade, and even the animals moved less. Elias knew these mountains well, but he respected them too much to take them lightly. He prepared carefully each day, knowing that one mistake could cost him dearly. That morning the sky was pale gray when Elias stepped outside. His breath formed clouds in the air. He adjusted his gloves and followed the narrow path that led toward the river. His boots pressed deep into the fresh snow, leaving clear marks behind him. Halfway down the trail, he stopped. Something felt wrong. He bent slightly and studied the ground. It were footprints, not his. Smaller, uneven, human. His body grew alert at once. No one came this far into the mountains without reason, and this time of year, no one came at all. Elias moved forward slowly, every sense awake. He listened for sounds beneath the wind. At first there was nothing. Then he heard it, a faint, broken breath, like someone struggling to stay awake. He followed the sound until he reached a fallen pine tree near the riverbank. That was when he saw her. She sat on the ground with her back against the tree. Her knees were pulled close to her chest. Her coat was thin, not meant for this cold. Snow clung to her hair and shoulders. Her face was pale, lips slightly blue, eyes wide with fear. Her hands trembled badly. When she noticed him, she gasped and tried to stand. Her legs failed her. She slipped back down, pressing herself harder against the tree as if it might hide her. "Please," she whispered. The word was weak but full of meaning. Elias stopped several steps away. He did not move closer. He knew how frightening he must look. He was tall and broad, his beard thick and untrimmed, his clothes worn from years of hard living. He looked like the mountain itself, rough and unwelcoming. "I won't hurt you," he said slowly. His voice sounded strange to his own ears. He had not used it much in years. She said nothing. Her eyes stayed fixed on his hands, watching closely. Elias noticed that immediately. Carefully, he knelt down and placed his hands where she could see them. They were empty. No tools. No weapons. Just hands rough from work. "You're freezing," he said. "You shouldn't be out here." Her lips moved, but no words came. He removed his thick outer coat and laid it on the snow between them. He pushed it toward her gently with his boot, then leaned back to give her space. "You can take it," he said. "I won't come closer." She stared at the coat for a long moment. Her hands shook as she reached for it. She dropped it once, then tried again. When she finally pulled it around her shoulders, her body relaxed just a little. A small breath escaped her, like she had not realized how cold she truly was until the warmth touched her. They sat like that in silence. Snow fell softly around them. The river moved slowly nearby, dark water cutting through white ice. The mountains stood tall and quiet, watching without judgment. After a while, Elias spoke again. "What's your name?" "Clara," she said. Her voice was barely more than a breath. "I'm Elias." He noticed the deep tiredness in her eyes, the faint marks on her wrists, half hidden by her sleeves. The way her shoulders stayed tight, as if she expected something bad to happen at any moment. "You're safe here," he said. She did not answer, but her breathing slowed slightly. The trembling in her hands softened, though it did not stop completely. Elias felt something stir inside him, something he had not felt in a long time. Concern. Responsibility. She shook her head. "I don't know," she said. I just kept walking. He understood what she meant. Sometimes people ran without knowing where they were going. He had done the same once. "You won't survive out here alone," he said gently. "Not in this weather." Her fingers tightened around the coat. I didn't know where else to go. Elias thought of his cabin. It was warm, safe. But it was also his only place, the one space he had guarded from the world for years. Letting someone inside felt like opening a door he had sealed long ago. He looked at Clara again. She looked back at him, fear still present, but something else too. Hope, fragile and unsure. Without thinking too much, he spoke. My cabin isn't far. You can rest there. Just until you're stronger. She hesitated. Her eyes searched his face, looking for truth. You don't have to, he added quickly. I won't force you. Silence stretched between them again. Finally, she nodded. Just once. Elias stood slowly and offered his hand, but stopped halfway. He remembered her eyes on his hands earlier. He lowered it again. Can you stand? He asked. I'll try. She pushed herself up carefully. Her legs shook, but she stayed upright. Elias walked beside her, not touching her, matching her pace. They moved slowly through the snow, step by careful step. As they walked, Elias felt the weight of another presence beside him. It felt strange, unfamiliar, but not unwelcome. By the time they reached the cabin, Clara was exhausted. Elias opened the door and stepped aside, letting her enter first. Warm air rushed out to meet her. She paused at the doorway, unsure. It's okay, he said softly. She stepped inside. The cabin was simple but clean. A fire burned low in the hearth. Elias added wood, and the room warmed quickly. He poured hot water and handed her a cup. She wrapped her hands around it, trembling again. But this time, it was from release, not fear. They sat across from each other, firelight dancing on the walls. After a long moment, Elias spoke, his voice careful and steady. You don't have to explain anything. Not today. Her hands trembled. Elias took a breath, choosing his words with care. May I hold you? He asked gently, and then he waited, giving her time, giving her choice, knowing that trust was not something that could ever be rushed. The fire cracked softly between them. The warmth filled the small cabin, melting the cold that had settled deep inside her bones. Her hands still trembled around the cup Elias had given her. Steam rose into the air, fogging her vision for a moment. No one had asked her a question like that in a long time, not one that gave her a choice. Elias stayed where he was. He did not move closer. He did not reach out. He simply waited, just as he had promised. His eyes were calm, steady, and patient. There was no hurry in him, no pressure. Slowly, Clara nodded. It was small, barely noticeable, but it was enough. Elias moved carefully, as if every step mattered. He sat beside her on the bench near the fire, leaving space between them. He lifted one arm slightly, giving her time to pull away if she wanted. Bid. She leaned in instead. Her body was stiff at first, like a frightened animal unsure of safety. Elias wrapped his arm around her shoulders gently, not pulling her closer, just holding her there. His touch was warm and solid, nothing demanding about it. Clara's breath shook once, then again. And then she broke. Tears spilled down her face, silent at first, then heavier. Her shoulders shook as she pressed her face against his chest. She clutched his coat with trembling fingers, as if afraid he might disappear if she let go. Elias said nothing. He only held her steady and quiet. He let her cry as long as she needed. The fire burned low. Outside, the wind howled through the trees, but inside the cabin, time seemed to slow. When her tears finally eased, Clara pulled back slightly, embarrassed. She wiped her face with her sleeve. I'm sorry, she whispered. There's nothing to be sorry for, Elias replied softly. She nodded, though she wasn't sure she believed him yet. He stood and brought her a folded blanket. You should rest, he said. You're safe here. It was simple. Wooden walls, a rough table, shelves with tools and jars. Nothing fancy, but it felt real. Solid, like a place that had been cared for. Will you be here? She asked. Yes, he answered without hesitation. That seemed to calm her. She lay down near the fire, wrapped in the blanket and his coat. Exhaustion pulled her under quickly. Within minutes, her breathing deepened and the tension left her face. Elias watched her sleep. It felt strange having someone else in his space. Stranger still to feel protective again. He had buried that part of himself long ago, or so he thought. He stayed awake most of the night, feeding the fire, listening to the sounds outside. Each time Clara stirred, he felt it, like a quiet pull in his chest. When morning came, pale light slipped through the small window. Elias rose quietly and prepared a simple meal, bread warmed over the fire and a small pot of broth. The smell woke Clara. She sat up slowly, blinking in confusion. For a moment, fear flashed across her face. Then she remembered where she was. You slept, Elias said gently. That's good. She nodded. I don't remember the last time I did. They ate in silence at first. The warmth and food brought color back to her face, though shadows still lingered in her eyes. After a while, Clara spoke. "I didn't plan to come here," she said. "I just kept walking. Away."
Elias listened.
"There were people," she continued quietly. "They said they would help. But they didn't." Her fingers tightened around the bowl. "I learned not to trust promises." "Promises are easy to say," he replied. "Harder to keep. I ran too," he added after a moment. "A long time ago." She didn't ask from what. He could tell he would speak when ready. That day passed slowly. Clara rested while Elias worked nearby, never too far away. He showed her where fresh water was, where she could sit outside if she wanted. He never forced conversation. He let her set the pace. Over the next few days, strength returned to her body bit by bit. The trembling in her hands faded, though it never disappeared fully. At night, she sometimes woke from bad dreams, breathing fast and shallow. Elias always heard. He would speak softly from across the room, grounding her with simple words. "You're here. You're safe. I'm right here." One evening, as snow fell heavily outside, Clara finally asked, "Why do you live out here alone?" Elias stared into the fire. "Because it was quieter than the pain," he said honestly. She nodded. She understood that. Days turned into a week. Clara helped where she could, cleaning, mending small things, preparing meals. She moved carefully, always asking before touching anything, always watching his reactions. One afternoon, she stood at the door, looking out at the mountains. "I don't know what happens next," she said. "I can't go back." "You don't have to decide yet," Elias replied. "Winter isn't kind. You can stay until the snow melts." She turned to him, eyes wide. "You'd let me stay?" "Yes." Her lips trembled, not from cold this time. That night, as the fire burned low again, Clara sat beside him. The space between them felt smaller now, not because he moved closer, but because she did. Her hand brushed his. She did not pull away. Elias looked at her, making sure. She met his eyes and gave a small nod. He took her hand gently, steady and warm. For the first time in years, neither of them felt completely alone. Winter slowly loosened its grip on the mountains, but it did not leave all at once. Snow still covered the ground, though it no longer felt as sharp or cruel. Days grew a little longer. The sun stayed in the sky just enough to remind the world that change was coming. Inside the cabin, life settled into a quiet rhythm. Clara woke each morning with the fire already warm and water heating nearby. Elias never made noise while she slept. He respected her rest the way one respects something fragile. At first, she felt strange about it. No one had ever cared whether she slept peacefully before. But with time, she grew used to it, and grateful. She helped where she could. She swept the floor, cleaned dishes, and learned how to prepare simple meals with what Elias had stored. He showed her how to dry herbs, how to mend torn cloth, how to listen to the forest. He spoke little, but when he did, his words were thoughtful and calm. Some days Clara talked more than he did. Other days she stayed quiet, lost in her thoughts. Elias never pushed her to speak. He had learned long ago that healing did not follow orders. One afternoon, as they sat outside near the cabin, Clara watched Elias carve a piece of wood. His hands moved slowly but surely, shaping the rough block into something useful. "You don't rush," she said. He smiled slightly. "Rushing leads to mistakes." She nodded. "I used to rush everywhere. Like if I stopped, something bad would catch me." He did not ask what that something was. "He only said nothing is chasing you here." The words stayed with her. That night Clara dreamed again. But the dream was different. She still ran, still felt fear. But this time there was a door ahead, a warm light behind it. When she woke, her heart was racing, but she did not feel alone. Elias was awake as always. "It was just a dream," he said softly from his chair. She nodded, breathing deeply until the panic passed. The next morning, Clara surprised herself by asking, "Can I go with you today?" Elias paused. "It's cold," he said, "and the trail is rough." "I know," she replied. I want to see more. I don't want to be afraid of the outside anymore." He studied her for a moment, then nodded. "We'll go slow." They walked together through the trees, Elias leading but not too far ahead. Clara watched how he moved, steady, aware, respectful of every step. She tried to copy him. The forest no longer felt like an enemy. It felt alive. At the river, they stopped. Ice still lined the edges, but water flowed freely in the center. "It's beautiful," Clara said. "Yes," Elias replied. "It always has been." She realized then that beauty did not disappear just because pain existed. Both could live side by side. As days passed, Clara grew stronger. Color returned to her cheeks. Her hands no longer shook constantly, only when memories crept too close. Elias noticed and adjusted without words. He changed the subject. He added wood to the fire. He stayed near. One evening, as snow fell lightly again, Clara finally spoke about her past. "I trusted the wrong people," she said, staring into the flames. "I thought kindness always meant safety. I was wrong. I kept telling myself it wasn't so bad, that I could handle it," she continued. "But one day I realized I was shrinking, becoming someone I didn't recognize. So I left." "That took courage," Elias said. She shook her head. It felt like fear. "Fear and courage often feel the same," he replied. Her eyes filled with tears, but she did not cry. Not this time. Later that night she asked him, "What did you run from?" Elias took a long breath. "I lost people," he said. "Not all at once. One by one, until the noise of the world felt too loud." "I'm sorry," she said. He nodded. "The mountains helped me survive, but I think I stopped living." She looked at him then, really looked. Not just at the quiet man who gave her shelter, but at the pain he carried beneath his calm. Spring arrived slowly. Snow melted into streams. Birds returned. The forest woke up again. With the change came new questions. One morning, Clara stood outside, watching the valley below. "What happens when winter ends?" she asked. Elias knew what she meant. "You'll have choices," he said. "That's all." She nodded, but uncertainty clouded her face. Days later, something unexpected happened. They heard voices. Elias froze at once, signaling Clara to stay back. The sound came from down the trail, men's voices, unfamiliar and loud. Elias felt his body tense, old instincts rising. Clara noticed. Fear flashed in her eyes. "They're not coming here," Elias said quietly, but he wasn't sure. The voices passed by after a while, fading into the distance. Still, the air felt different afterward. The world had reminded them that it existed. That night, Clara barely slept. In the morning, she said, "I don't want to hide forever." "Neither do I." They talked long into the evening about what life might look like beyond the mountains, about towns and work and people, about fear and hope. "I don't know if I'm ready," Claire admitted. "You don't have to be ready today," Elias said, "or tomorrow." She smiled faintly. "You always say the right thing. I just say what feels true." One afternoon, as they worked together outside, Clara laughed for the first time. It surprised both of them. The sound was light, almost shy, but real. Elias smiled openly then. The bond between them deepened. Not rushed, not named, but felt. Trust grew in small moments. Shared silence. Shared work. Shared warmth. One evening, Clara reached for his hand again. This time, there was no hesitation. "Thank you," she said. "For what?" "For not trying to fix me." Elias squeezed her hand gently. "You were never broken." She leaned her head against his shoulder, and he let himself rest there too. Outside, the mountains stood steady as always. Inside the cabin, two wounded souls were slowly learning how to live again, together. Spring fully arrived in the mountains, bringing change that could no longer be ignored. Snow melted into clear streams, and green pushed its way through the earth. The forest felt alive again, filled with birds and fresh air. With the beauty came movement, and with movement came decisions. Clara felt it first. She woke one morning with a strange mix of peace and restlessness. The mountains had given her safety, warmth, and time to heal. But deep inside, a quiet voice reminded her that healing was not the end of the journey. It was the beginning. She stepped outside the cabin and watched sunlight fall across the valley. It was breathtaking, yet for the first time she wondered what lay beyond it. Elias joined her, handing her a cup of warm tea. "You're thinking hard," he said. "I am," she admitted. "I'm not afraid like before. But I don't want fear to decide my life anymore." Then it shouldn't. They spent that day preparing the cabin for warmer months, fixing the roof, planting a small garden, checking supplies. They worked side by side, moving in a comfortable rhythm. They didn't need many words anymore. Understanding passed easily between them. That evening, Clara spoke again. "I think I want to go down the mountain, just to see, to know I can." Elias felt something tighten in his chest, but he did not show it. "When?" he asked. "Soon," she said, "before I lose the courage." He nodded slowly. "I'll go with you." She turned, surprised. You would? Not because you need me. Because I think I need it too. The next morning they packed lightly. The trail downward felt longer than the one that led up. With every step the forest thinned and signs of the wider world appeared. Old fences, worn paths, distant sounds. Clara's heart raced, but she kept walking. The second day they reached the edge of a small town. Smoke rose from chimneys. People moved about, busy with their lives. The noise felt loud, almost overwhelming. Clara stopped. Elias noticed. We can turn back, he said. She took a deep breath. No, I want to try. They walked in together. At first, people stared. Elias knew why. He looked out of place. Tall, rough, dressed for the wild. Clara felt eyes on her, too, measuring and curious. They found a small inn near the edge of town. The woman at the desk hesitated, but finally gave them a room. Clara thanked her politely, proud of her steady voice. Inside, Clara sat on the bed, hands folded tightly. It's strange, she said. I thought I would feel free. Instead, I feel small again. Elias sat across from her. Freedom isn't loud, he said. It's quiet. It grows slowly. The next day, Clara went out alone. It was something she had decided during the night. She needed to prove to herself that she could stand on her own. Elias respected her choice, though worry followed her out the door. She walked through the town, past shops and homes. Some people smiled. Some didn't notice her at all. With each step, her confidence grew. When she returned, her eyes were bright. I did it, she said. I was scared, but I did it. Elias smiled. I knew you would. That evening, someone from Clara's past appeared. She saw him across the street, a man she recognized instantly. Her body froze. Old fear rushed back, sharp and sudden. Elias noticed at once. He stepped closer, not touching her, just present. The man did not approach. He looked, hesitated, then turned away. She leaned against the wall, breathing hard. It's over, Elias said quietly. He has no power here. She nodded, tears sliding down her face. But these were different tears. These were tears of release. That night, Clara slept deeply. The next morning she said, I don't want to live in fear anymore, but I don't think the town is my place either. Elias understood. You don't have to choose just one world, he said. You can build something new. The cabin was no longer a hiding place. It was a home by choice. Weeks passed. Clara began writing, her thoughts, her story, her growth. Elias expanded the garden. They planned together, dreamed together. One afternoon, Clara said softly, I don't want to leave. You don't have to. I'm staying because I want this life. His breath caught slightly. So am I. The bond between them shifted then, deeper, clearer. Not built on rescue or need, but on choice. As summer approached, the mountains bloomed. Life moved forward. Clara had faced her past and stepped beyond it. Elias had stepped back into the world without losing himself. They stood together at the cabin door one evening, watching the sun dip behind the peaks. Whatever the future held, it would be faced openly. Summer arrived gently in the mountains, as if it did not want to disturb the peace Clara and Elias had built together. The days were warm, the nights calm. Flowers grew near the cabin, and the small garden Elias had planted now showed signs of life. Everything felt steady, rooted, and real. Clara woke early one morning and stepped outside barefoot, feeling the cool ground beneath her feet. She breathed in deeply. For the first time in her life, the future did not feel like something chasing her. It felt like something waiting. Elias joined her, carrying 2 cups of tea. He handed her one without a word. They stood side by side, watching sunlight spill over the mountains. You're different, he said quietly. She smiled. So are you. They had both changed, not in loud or dramatic ways, but in ways that lasted. Clara no longer flinched at sudden sounds. She laughed more easily. Elias spoke more often, his silence no longer heavy but thoughtful. That day, Clara asked, Do you ever think about leaving? He considered the question carefully. I think about visiting, he said, but not running. Not anymore. Next moment she nodded. That's how I feel too. Over the next weeks, they welcomed small pieces of the world into their quiet life. Travelers passed through now and then, asking for water or directions. Elias helped when he could. Clara spoke to them easily, her voice calm and confident. One afternoon, a woman stopped by with her young son. The boy stared at the mountains with wide eyes. Do you live here? He asked Clara. Yes, she replied. Isn't it lonely? Clara looked at Elias, then back at the boy. Not if you build your life with care, she said. The woman thanked them and moved on, leaving behind a feeling of quiet pride. That evening, Clara sat by the fire, writing in her notebook. Elias watched her from across the room. You write every day, he said. I don't want to forget, she replied. Not the pain, not the healing. All of it made me who I am. One day you might help someone else. She smiled softly. Maybe I already am. As summer deepened, they faced one last test. A letter arrived at the mountain explaining that the town below had heard of a man who lived alone in the wild. The letter was simple, written in careful handwriting. It came from someone Elias once knew, a relative he had not spoken to in years. They wanted to reconnect. Elias held the letter for a long time, unsure. Clara did not push him. She waited. Finally, he said, I don't know if I'm ready. You don't have to answer now, she replied. And you don't have to answer at all. He looked at her grateful. I think I want to try, but I don't want to lose this. You won't, she said firmly. We choose this life. No one can take that from us. A week later, they walked down the mountain together again. This time, there was no fear in Clara's steps, no hesitation in Elias's. The meeting was quiet, careful. There were questions and there were silences, but there was also understanding. Elias did not promise more than he could give. He did not pretend to be someone he wasn't. When it was over, he felt lighter. On the walk back up, he said, I didn't know I could face the past without losing myself. Clara smiled. You weren't alone this time. As autumn approached, the air cooled and the forest shifted colors. Clara and Elias prepared together, gathering supplies, reinforcing the cabin. Their movements were practiced, easy. One night as they sat outside watching the stars, Elias spoke words he had carried for a long time. When I asked if I could hold you that first day, he said, I didn't know it would change my life. You didn't save me, she said gently. You respected me. That's what mattered. He reached for her hand just as gently as the first time. She squeezed it, steady and sure. I choose this life, she continued, and I choose you. Not out of fear, not out of need, but because I want to walk forward together. Elias's eyes filled, but his voice stayed strong. So do I. What they shared was built on patience, trust, and choice. Winter came again, but it felt different now. It was not something to survive. It was something to live through. The cabin glowed warmly against the snow. Inside, laughter mixed with quiet moments. Stories were shared. Silence was welcomed. Elias no longer hid. They had not erased their pasts. They had accepted them. And in the heart of the mountains, where silence once meant loneliness, two people built a life filled with meaning, respect, and quiet joy. Not because they were rescued,